The 1970s weren't just a golden age for action thrillers, they were a powder keg, sparking the explosions that shaped every blockbuster you love today. Did you ever wonder where modern cinema's grit, tension, and those legendary chase scenes truly began? Some say Hollywood lost its innocence in this wild decade, trading old-school heroes for mavericks who rewrote the rules. What movies set the bar so high that directors are still chasing their shadows? Get ready for 25 pulse-pounding classics that redefined the action thriller forever. The French Connection, 1971. If you want to know when the action thriller stopped playing by the rules, look no further than The French Connection. William Friedkin threw audiences onto the streets of New York and didn't let go for a single frame. Gene Hackman's Popeye Doyle isn't just a cop. He's a force of nature, chasing drug lords with a hunger that feels almost dangerous. That legendary car chase? Friedkin filmed it at full speed, real traffic, real danger, and only the barest permission from city officials. Hackman's car nearly hit a city bus for real, and the crew was ducking for cover behind parked cars. The film's grainy style, jump-cut editing, and total lack of glamour made every cop thriller that followed seem tame. It won 5 Oscars and changed how directors staged action, no more polite shootouts or sanitized streets. Suddenly, thrillers were dirty, breathless, and unpredictable. Modern filmmakers still study The French Connection, searching for a fraction of its raw nerve. You think you know what a chase looks like? Watch this, and you'll never look at city streets the same way again. Dirty Harry, 1971. With Dirty Harry, Clint Eastwood changed the face of justice and made movie tough guys dangerous again. Inspector Harry Callahan wasn't out for glory or medals. He was a relentless, rule-breaking cop who played by his own code. Don Siegel shot it all on location in San Francisco, harnessing the city's real grit and unpredictability. The .44 Magnum, the scowl, the now iconic "Do you feel lucky?" None of it was just for show. Eastwood improvised, and the tension in that scene was so real you could hear the audience hold its breath. Critics argued over whether the film went too far, but the public couldn't get enough of Harry's uncompromising sense of justice. Suddenly, it was okay for movie heroes to bend the law, to chase evil wherever it hid. Dirty Harry made a blueprint for anti-heroes that directors still copy today, from Lethal Weapon to countless TV detectives. Every time you see a cop who won't play nice, remember, it all started here, with a single question and a gun nobody could forget. Deliverance, 1972. Deliverance took action off the city streets and tossed it headfirst into the wild. John Boorman's thriller doesn't give you time to relax. The danger is as real as the river that almost claimed its stars. Burt Reynolds insisted on doing his own stunts, shooting rapids so fierce the crew feared for his safety. The tension between the 4 leads was just as real. Boorman kept them isolated and sleep-deprived to build authentic distrust. The film's banjo duel, its primal sense of menace, and the suffocating silence of the woods flipped the script on what a thriller could be. Critics didn't know what to make of it at first. Was it horror, survival, or pure adrenaline? All they knew was that nobody left the theater the same. Deliverance inspired a wave of man versus nature thrillers and forced Hollywood to acknowledge the raw, unpredictable power of the outdoors. Every survival film that came after owes a debt to these battered canoes and haunted faces. The Getaway, 1972. There's cool, and then there's Steve McQueen in The Getaway. Paired with director Sam Peckinpah, McQueen's Criminal on the Run became the blueprint for the modern anti-hero. Peckinpah didn't bother with pretty. He shot in unforgiving Texas towns, used real locals, and insisted on stunts with dust, sweat, and plenty of bruises. The chemistry between McQueen and Ali MacGraw spilled off the screen, raising the stakes in every scene. Peckinpah's signature slow-motion violence added a gritty poetry to shootouts and chases, making every moment unpredictable. What made The Getaway iconic wasn't just the action, it was the sense that danger was always one wrong turn away, with real consequences for every bad decision. Directors from Quentin Tarantino to Michael Mann have borrowed its relentless pacing and nothing left to lose vibe. The Getaway isn't just a chase film, it's a crash course in desperation, style, and pure adrenaline. The 7-Up's 1973. The 7-Up's rarely gets the credit it deserves, but action fans know this is the hidden engine behind every car chase you love today. Philip D'Antoni, fresh off producing The French Connection, directed this cops and kidnappers thriller with a level of realism that feels almost reckless. Roy Scheider leads a squad of plainclothes cops with nothing to lose and no patience for bureaucracy. The film's centerpiece, a relentless car chase through New York's boroughs, features crashes so violent and near misses so close, stunt drivers called it the most dangerous shoot ever. D'Antoni used unmarked cars, real traffic, and wild stunts that made studio heads nervous. But what really sets the 7-Ups apart is its sense of constant threat. No one is safe, not even the supposed heroes. This film influenced every gritty action movie that followed, showing that stakes didn't need to be global. Sometimes, it's the chase down a city street that makes your heart skip a beat. Magnum Force 1973. Magnum Force did the impossible. It made Dirty Harry even tougher, but also more human. This time, Clint Eastwood's iconic cop faces a crew of vigilante police officers willing to kill anyone they decide is guilty. What set Magnum Force apart wasn't just its action, but its willingness to question what justice means when the system breaks down. Director Ted Post amped up the tension with motorcycle chases through real San Francisco traffic and shootouts staged in cramped, unpredictable locations. The film's script, secretly written by a young John Milius and Michael Cimino, sharpened Harry's persona into a blueprint for every conflicted cop that followed. Eastwood insisted on doing as many stunts as he could, adding a level of authenticity missing from more sanitized thrillers. But Magnum Force's real power comes from its ambiguity, making you wonder where the line is between hero and monster. Every action thriller has since borrowed from its ethical gray zones, proving that the only thing scarier than a villain might just be the man meant to protect you. The Taking of Pelham, 123, 1974. The Taking of Pelham. 123 is the film that made every subway ride a potential powder keg. Joseph Sargent's thriller about four criminals hijacking a New York subway car turned a city's worst nightmare into a breathless chess match. Walter Matthau leads the cat-and-mouse pursuit, but it's the villain, Robert Shaw's icy mastermind, that raises the stakes with every minute. Sargent filmed in the real, grimy tunnels beneath Manhattan, getting permission after a lengthy negotiation with city officials who worried about inspiring copycats. The film's razor-sharp dialogue, ticking clock structure, and sudden bursts of violence redefined how action movies built suspense. It's not about spectacle, it's about tension, anticipation, and the claustrophobia of being trapped underground. Directors from Quentin Tarantino to Tony Scott have paid homage to Pelham, borrowing its pacing and sharp cuts. The next time a thriller traps its characters in a tight, moving space, remember, this is where the tension started. Death Wish 1974. Death Wish sparked more debates than any other action thriller of the decade. Charles Bronson plays a mild-mannered architect turned vigilante after a brutal attack on his family, and suddenly, New York's criminals have a new reason to watch their backs. Director Michael Winner shot the film on location, embracing the city's real dangers and using local extras to add authenticity. Bronson's steely calm and Winner's unflinching camera made the violence feel both personal and unsettling. The public loved it, but critics were divided. Was the movie condoning vigilantism or just exposing a city on the edge? What can't be argued is its influence. Death Wish gave birth to a whole subgenre of revenge thrillers, from Taxi Driver to modern blockbusters, and forced Hollywood to wrestle with questions about justice, morality, and the consequences of violence. Even today, no vigilante film escapes the shadow of Bronson's cold stare and the city that made him. Chinatown 1974. Chinatown isn't just an action thriller, it's a slow-burn mystery that punches harder than most shootouts. Roman Polanski's masterpiece brought a new level of darkness and complexity to the genre, with Jack Nicholson as Private Eye Jake Gittes digging into a web of corruption no one was supposed to see. What makes Chinatown truly legendary is its atmosphere: sun-drenched Los Angeles hiding rot and danger beneath every gleam. Polanski shot on real city streets and used minimal lighting, letting the shadows do the work. Faye Dunaway's haunted femme fatale and John Huston's menacing tycoon made the stakes deeply personal. The script by Robert Towne is pure gold, sharp, poetic, and loaded with betrayals that still sting. The film's ending rewrote the rules, proving that not every story ends with justice. Chinatown's influence is everywhere, from the neo-noir thrillers of the 80s to modern prestige TV. When a movie leaves you questioning everything, you know you've just seen a classic. 3 Days of the Condor, 1975. 3 Days of the Condor turned the spy thriller inside out and made paranoia feel like an everyday fact of life. Sidney Pollack's taut direction puts Robert Redford's bookish CIA analyst in the crosshairs, suddenly on the run from his own employers after a routine day turns deadly. Shot on the bustling streets of New York, the film's authenticity comes from using real locations and a camera that never lets you catch your breath. Redford's desperate ingenuity and Faye Dunaway's wary ally make for an unlikely tension-filled duo. What sets Condor apart is its sense of uncertainty. Every phone call, every stranger on a street corner could mean death. Pollack taps into the Watergate-era distrust of institutions, turning a popcorn thriller into something disturbingly relevant. Directors from Tony Scott to Paul Greengrass have studied Condor's pacing, its matter-of-fact violence, and its chilling sense that no one is really safe. This film didn't just influence action thrillers, it changed how we see power, trust, and survival. Dog Day Afternoon, 1975. Dog Day Afternoon doesn't look like a classic action thriller at first glance, but under the surface, it's a live wire. Sidney Lumet dropped Al Pacino into a Brooklyn bank, locked the doors, and let the pressure climb until everyone, hostages, robbers, and cops, was running out of options. The genius is in the details. Lumet insisted on shooting in sequence, letting the actor's exhaustion and nerves bleed into the film. Pacino improvised some of his most famous lines, ramping up the unpredictability. Outside, real crowds gathered to watch the production, some thinking it was a genuine standoff. Lumet used only a handful of locations, squeezing out every drop of tension with tight shots and natural light. There's a sense of real time that turns a simple heist into a boiling cauldron of suspense. What makes Dog Day Afternoon last is its humanity. These aren't action heroes, they're desperate people, trying to survive a situation spinning out of control. The film shattered the illusion that thrillers needed superheroes or exotic locations. Sometimes, the most explosive drama comes from the pressure cooker across the street. Its influence is everywhere, from Inside Man to modern TV hostage dramas, and every time a director wants to turn up the heat with just a locked door and a ticking clock, they owe this one a nod. Rollerball 1975. Rollerball didn't just break new ground. It smashed it to pieces and scattered the remains across the sports and action genres. Norman Jewison imagined a future where corporations rule and bloodsport is the only escape for the masses. James Caan trained for months to play Jonathan E., a star athlete who turns the game against its creators. The sport itself, a brutal mix of roller derby, motocross, and gladiator brawling, was so violent that some extras left the set in fear of real injuries. Jewison built a world using massive sets, grim industrial backdrops, and costumes that have inspired sci-fi filmmakers for decades. Every bone-jarring collision was filmed with cameras strapped to skates, putting the audience right in the carnage. Rollerball isn't just about action. It's a warning shot about entertainment, control, and resistance. The film's influence rolls straight through The Running Man, The Hunger Games, and even video games. It dared to ask what happens when violence is no longer an exception, but the main event. No one who saw those whirling, armored wheels ever forgot them, and neither did modern action cinema. Jaws, 1975. Jaws turned every beach into a potential hunting ground and forever redefined the summer thriller. Steven Spielberg, barely past his 20s, faced a malfunctioning mechanical shark and rewrote film history by accident. Forced to hide the monster, Spielberg focused on tension, letting John Williams' iconic score and shadowy glimpses do the terrorizing. Shooting on the real Atlantic, the cast and crew endured seasickness, bad weather, and a schedule that spiraled out of control. But that chaos bled into the film, making every moment unpredictable. Roy Scheider, Richard Dreyfuss, and Robert Shaw anchored the story with a trio of flawed, believable heroes. The result? Audiences screamed, critics raved, and Hollywood realized thrillers could be both smart and commercial dynamite. Jaws invented the modern summer blockbuster and showed that suspense, more than spectacle, pulls viewers to the edge of their seats. From Jurassic Park to every creature feature since, the shadow of that fin in the water looms large. Even now, Jaws is the reason every director thinks twice before showing the monster too soon. Marathon Man 1976. Marathon Man is the thriller that made everyone afraid of the dentist and everything else. John Schlesinger's adaptation of William Goldman's novel follows Dustin Hoffman's grad student as he's dragged into a world of espionage, torture, and family secrets. Hoffman famously ran miles before each take to keep himself out of breath, lending every chase a frantic authenticity. Laurence Olivier's villain, chilling and refined, was so convincing that some crew members avoided him off-set. Schlesinger shot on location in New York's maze of streets, using handheld cameras and quick cuts to keep the audience as off-balance as the protagonist. The film's torture scene became infamous for its realism. Hoffman insisted on performing it himself, refusing painkillers to better sell the agony. But what sets Marathon Man apart is its blend of psychological terror and physical danger. The suspense builds slowly, tightening until you can barely stand it, and then explodes. Modern thrillers from The Fugitive to Bourne borrow its template: chase, betrayal, and the nightmare that might be waiting around the next corner. After Marathon Man, nobody trusted a smile from the dentist again. Assault on Precinct 13, 1976. Assault on Precinct 13 is John Carpenter's calling card, a siege thriller that takes the action back to basics and turns the screws until they snap. Carpenter, working on a shoestring budget, created maximum tension with minimum resources. The story is simple: a nearly abandoned police station, a handful of defenders, and a relentless street gang closing in from every angle. Carpenter composed his own synth-heavy score, ramping up the dread and giving every shootout a pulse you can feel in your bones. The cast, largely unknown at the time, brings a rawness and unpredictability that make every loss hurt. Carpenter filmed quickly, using clever angles and shadows to make the gang seem both everywhere and nowhere at once. The violence, sudden and shocking, set a new bar for intensity in American thrillers. Assault on Precinct 13 became a cult classic, influencing everything from Rio Bravo tributes to The Purge. Every modern, hold-the-fort action movie owes a debt to this relentless, stripped-down masterpiece. When you see a hero barricaded and outnumbered, remember, it all started here, with Carpenter's pounding synth and a night that never seemed to end. Taxi Driver 1976. Taxi Driver didn't just challenge audiences, it ripped the mask off the city, showing the rot underneath every neon glow. Martin Scorsese's vision is all grit and gasoline, with Robert De Niro's Travis Bickle steering straight into the darkest corners of New York. Scorsese shot on real night streets, catching the trash, rain, and chaos as it happened. De Niro, prepping for his role, actually drove a cab for weeks, picking up passengers at all hours and absorbing the city's late-night pulse. The film's sense of danger is almost suffocating. Every encounter feels unpredictable. Every glance could turn violent. Bernard Herrmann's final score, finished days before his death, threads dread through every frame. The infamous mirror scene, De Niro ad-libbing, became an instant pop culture echo. But the film's greatest legacy is its refusal to let you off the hook. Taxi Driver asks, what happens when a loner decides to act? That tension between hero and menace haunts action thrillers to this day. Directors from Nolan to Refn cite it as a touchstone. Travis's world isn't just his own, it's any place where the line between justice and madness starts to blur. After Taxi Driver, thrillers could be character studies and still punch like a fist. The Enforcer 1976. The Enforcer saw Clint Eastwood's Dirty Harry back on the streets, this time paired with an unlikely new partner, Tyne Daly's rookie inspector. What could have been a gimmick became a fresh jolt for the action formula. Director James Fargo took the established character and forced him to adapt, adding humor and unexpected chemistry to the mix. Daly, playing Inspector Kate Moore, insisted on doing her own stunts, earning instant respect from the usually unflappable Eastwood. The film's action, set against San Francisco's bustling, unpredictable locations, was amped up. Real crowds, tight corners, and no room for retakes. This time, the villain isn't just a faceless psycho, but an armed militia with its own twisted manifesto, raising the stakes for everyone involved. The Enforcer's blend of shootouts, snappy dialogue, and shifting partnerships kept the franchise alive, proving action heroes could evolve. The movie helped pave the way for the buddy cop trend that would dominate in the 80s, inspiring everything from Lethal Weapon to 48 Horrors. When you see mismatched partners bickering and blasting through danger, thank the Enforcer for firing the first shots. Black Sunday, 1977. Black Sunday is the film that made sports stadiums a battleground for terror and left millions eyeing blimps with suspicion. John Frankenheimer's adaptation of Thomas Harris's novel turns a Miami Super Bowl into a nightmare as terrorists plan to drop explosives from the Goodyear blimp. Frankenheimer demanded unprecedented access to the real Super Bowl X, filming crowd scenes among 80,000 real fans, some of whom had no idea a movie was being made. Bruce Dern's chilling performance as the unhinged pilot raises the stakes with every tense second. The production used actual Goodyear pilots and staged jaw-dropping aerial stunts over the stadium. No CGI, just nerves of steel. The film's pacing is relentless, bouncing between FBI agents, terrorists, and unsuspecting victims, tightening the noose with each crosscut. Black Sunday set the bar for all thrillers, where public events become targets, influencing everything from Die Hard with a Vengeance to modern disaster flicks. The next time a movie threatens a stadium crowd, know it all started with a blimp hovering over the roaring crowd and a single, terrifying idea. The Driver, 1978. The Driver is a stripped-down bullet of a movie. No frills, just pure adrenaline. Walter Hill set out to make the ultimate urban car chase film and did so by taking everything down to the bare essentials. Ryan O'Neal plays a getaway driver so silent and mysterious, he barely speaks, letting his driving do the talking. Hill shot real chases at night in Los Angeles, using the city's empty streets and neon reflections as a playground for danger. The stunts were performed by some of the best drivers in the business, with cars smashing through obstacles and screeching around corners with zero room for error. The film's cat-and-mouse structure, with Bruce Dern as a detective obsessed with catching his quarry, keeps the tension white-hot. Hill's minimal style, favoring mood over dialogue, influenced a generation of directors, most famously Nicholas Winding Refn's Drive. The Driver's DNA is in every modern chase scene that values style, mood, and the quiet terror of not knowing who's in the next car over. Sometimes, less is a lot more. Capricorn 1, 1978. Capricorn 1 took the paranoia of the 70s and blasted it into the desert. Peter Hyams directed this pulse-pounding thriller about a faked Mars landing, government cover-ups, and 3 desperate astronauts running for their lives. The concept was inspired by real conspiracy theories, but Hyams made it terrifyingly plausible. Filming in arid, sun-blasted locations, the actors, James Brolin, Sam Waterston, O.J. Simpson, endured real heat and dehydration, adding to the feeling of desperation. The chase scenes, with helicopters hunting the astronauts across endless sand, were shot using real military hardware, giving every pursuit a raw edge. Telly Savalas's cameo as a crusty crop duster pilot steals the film's final act. What makes Capricorn One resonate is its distrust of authority, a perfect mirror for an era scarred by scandals and secrecy. The movie's shadow can be seen in everything from The X-Files to Gravity, as filmmakers continue to mine the fear that the truth might be even scarier than the lie. After Capricorn One, every conspiracy thriller had to work twice as hard to keep up. The Warriors 1979. The Warriors hit the streets like a lightning bolt, bringing a wild, stylized vision of urban survival to the big screen. Walter Hill directed with raw energy, telling the story of a street gang's desperate journey home through a New York City transformed into a nightmarish playground. Shot on location in city subways, parks, and back alleys, the production was so intense that real gangs sometimes showed up to watch or disrupt filming. Cast and crew traveled in groups for safety, adding a layer of real anxiety to every late-night shoot. Hill used comic book-style transitions and a synth-heavy score, giving the film an edge and pace that set it apart. The dialogue is legendary, filled with taunts and rallying cries, none more iconic than "Warriors, come out to play." Released to controversy and news reports of violence at early screenings, The Warriors quickly gained cult status, inspiring imitators and parodies for decades. Its blend of action, suspense, and wild style proved that thrillers could be bold and unafraid to push boundaries. Whenever you see a movie that turns the city into a jungle and its inhabitants into mythic heroes, you're watching echoes of The Warriors.
Escape from Alcatraz 1979. Escape from Alcatraz took the prison break thriller and made it feel like a ticking clock you couldn't escape. Don Siegel reunited with Clint Eastwood, casting him as the legendary real-life escape artist Frank Morris. Filming on the actual abandoned Alcatraz Island, Siegel embraced the bone-chilling cold and haunting silence, letting the location's history seep into every shot. The cast and crew spent weeks on the wind-battered island, with Eastwood and his co-stars crawling through tight tunnels and chipping away at concrete with real makeshift tools. The authenticity paid off. The film feels as claustrophobic and desperate as the true story. Siegel's camera lingers on every small, risky movement, ramping up the tension until the final, breathless escape attempt. No music tells you how to feel. You're left alone with the scrape of metal and pounding heartbeats. Escape from Alcatraz didn't just thrill, it raised the standard for realism in action and inspired countless prison break stories in the decades since. Any film that locks you in with its characters and forces you to sweat out every minute owes a debt to this stone-cold classic. The Great Train Robbery, 1979. The Great Train Robbery proved that action and wit could ride side by side in a period thriller. Michael Crichton, better known for his sci-fi, wrote and directed this Victorian-era caper based on an infamous real-life crime. Sean Connery leads a cast that dives headfirst into train-top stunts, tightrope walks across moving carriages, and ingenious schemes, all performed with a twinkle in the eye. Crichton filmed on actual steam trains rumbling through the British countryside, using practical effects and minimal trickery. Connery, ever the showman, insisted on doing much of his own rooftop work, causing insurance agents to sweat bullets. Donald Sutherland's sly sidekick and Leslie Ann Down's daring partner in crime round out a cast that clearly relished every twist. The film mixes suspense, humor, and old-school heist mechanics, making it both a love letter to classic thrillers and a lesson in how to keep an audience on edge. Directors from Guy Ritchie to Steven Soderbergh have borrowed its blend of charm and danger. The Great Train Robbery isn't just about gold. It's about the thrill of the chase and the joy of a perfectly executed plan. Sorcerer 1977. Sorcerer is what happens when a director goes all in, no compromises, just white-knuckle suspense and sweat-soaked realism. William Friedkin, riding high from The Exorcist, remade the French classic Wages of Fear as an American fever dream. Four desperate men, each running from their past, are hired to haul unstable nitroglycerin across deadly South American jungles. Friedkin filmed in real jungles in Mexico and the Dominican Republic, facing mudslides, fevers, and bridges that threatened to collapse. The centerpiece, a truck crossing a rotting rope bridge in a torrential downpour, was so dangerous that crew members quit. Roy Scheider, Friedkin's lead, endured grueling conditions to sell the fear. The suspense is relentless. Every bump in the road could mean disaster, and Friedkin's camera never looks away. The film flopped on release, partly because it opened against Star Wars, but its reputation has only grown. Modern directors cite Sorcerer as a masterclass in tension and atmosphere, and every action set piece in a jungle or on a bridge owes a debt to Friedkin's uncompromising vision. Sometimes, the greatest danger isn't what's chasing you, it's the road ahead. The Gauntlet, 1977. The Gauntlet is pure, unfiltered Clint Eastwood, a one-man battering ram smashing through waves of danger. Eastwood directed himself as a down-and-out cop tasked with escorting a witness across Arizona, only to discover the entire city wants them dead. The action is unapologetic. Bullet-riddled buses, rooftop snipers, and chase sequences where real buildings were demolished for the sake of authenticity. Eastwood performed many of his own stunts, driving a reinforced bus through a relentless hail of gunfire, refusing to cut corners or rely on effects. Sandra Locke, as his determined partner, kept up every step of the way, bringing grit and heart to the ride. The film's plot might seem straightforward, but Eastwood's direction cranks the tension to 11. Every turn brings a new ambush, and every quiet moment feels like the calm before another storm. The Gauntlet set the tone for action heroes who refuse to quit, no matter how impossible the odds. Today, every movie that puts its lead through a relentless gauntlet of traps and shootouts stands in the long shadow of Eastwood's battered, bulletproof bus. And there you have it. 25 relentless thrillers from the wildest decade in Hollywood, each one still echoing in the action movies you love today. Did your favorite make the cut, or did we miss a classic that deserves the spotlight? Let us know in the comments which 1970s action thriller still makes your pulse race. If you want more cinematic deep dives, hit subscribe and join us for the next ride, because in the world of action, the story never really ends.